Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Our largest single-theme land expansion ever.
Now we want you to share with us our latest and greatest dream.
Matterhorn Matt presents Matterhorn Mondays.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 147 of Matterhorn Mondays, coming to you live from the Outpost. I'm your host, Matterhorn Matt.
And I am your host, Alex the Historian.
And I'm your third wheel. First mate, like on a ship or something. Jeremy.
We're back, everybody. What does that make Alex if Jeremy's the first mate? If I would be the captain?
I don't know,
would we
because
be
there's like two captains.
Okay.
There's like two captains, and I'm
the
here,
admiral.
I'm here. I don't feel comfortable claiming role of host. Not with Alex right next to me.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Jeremy, do you have any card tricks that you're going to be showing people on the stream? Or
That's right. Yeah, that's all we're doing today. We didn't look up the news. I'm going to be doing a series of card tricks today. So, Ryan in chat, why don't you pick a card? I'm kidding. Okay.
Jeremy's life is a series of card tricks.
Dang, burn. Yeah, well, we're back, everybody.
I'm trying to figure. I feel like there's multiple interpretations of what that could mean.
That's
card
true.
tricks, yeah. Well, card tricks are...
Am I like manipulative, slighted, sneaky, or am I like, wow, filled with constant surprises and,
Yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're glad to be back, everybody, after missing 3 whole episodes. We have returned to the channel. We've returned to the Outpost, everybody, and we're glad to be back. And as you all know, links to all of our social media will be down in the description below. And if you guys haven't been watching for the past 147 episodes, you can go ahead and follow the link down below to submit your birthday. If you'd like to be wished a happy birthday live on the stream, we will add your birthday to our calendar, and we might as well run through the birthdays that we missed for the past 3 weeks. So there's only a few here. So the 25th, Tuesday the 25th of August, was Victoria's birthday. Thursday the 27th of August, Matthew Rivera's birthday, as well as Monday the 31st of August, Hannah Canali? I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Happy birthday to you. And today, actually, Katrina's birthday on the 6th of September. And, also as well, Wednesday the 9th, Sam's birthday. One of our friends, Sam, who's a mod on the channel. And Monday the 7th is Jay's birthday. So, happy birthday to all of you. 7 or 8, I think. I didn't count. Lovely people. And like I said, follow the link down below if you'd like to be wished a happy birthday. And as you all know, 575-386-5814. Ring us up if you'd like to leave a voicemail and sort of speak your mind on what topics we're going to be talking about. And we are excited to get into today's episode. Hopefully going to be a sort of chillax kind of episode, hey, we're back, everybody. That's the kind of vibe we're looking for today. But Jeremy, Alex, do you have anything you'd like to say before we get started on the show today?
Matt, you have like a charming, like energy today. I've never seen, it's good. It's interesting,
Thank you, Jeremy.
Quite charming, yeah.
Yeah. These past 3 weeks, I've been practicing.
Energetic. You seem energetic.
Energetic. Thank you. Well, I got a good night's sleep last night. I had some Coca-Cola from McDonald's just a few minutes ago, and I also have waiting for me a Snapple for you all.
A whole wide world of knowledge waits underneath the cat. It's a good time this week for Matterhorn Night Snaps.
Yes, It is returned. Matt Snaps has returned, and I have returned with a classic kiwi strawberry Snapple here for you all, if I can get this looking right. That looks really nice, that picture right there. It's not white balanced. Up there it is. Now it's perfectly focused, and you can see the kiwi strawberry Snapple that we'll be sipping on today. So let's go ahead and pop this open here and see if we can get a good snap today. Should I do it? I should do it on this side of the mic.
Mm-hmm.
It spilled on my hand. Yeah. And this is a real fact number 6, you guys. This was the 6th bottle of Snapple ever made. That's what that means. A honeybee can fly at 15 miles per hour. That's faster than some cars can go.
That's faster than the Mickey and Friends tram.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I think anything's faster than that.
That's true. I
think my aging is faster than that.
Oh, no. Nice. Well, that has been this week's Matt Snaps. I know I let you guys down the past couple episodes with me forgetting the Snapples, but my cup is full of ice, and now Snapple, and there's also Snapple on my desk, so I'll wipe that off, and then we'll get into this week's news from the Peak.
We now present to you news.
Yeah. Guys, if you make it to the episode early enough, you'll see that I run through the transitions to make sure that they don't buffer and stutter like that, but sometimes OBS has a mind of its own.
Sometimes?
Every episode, to be completely honest.
I always just thought that that's how Jeremy talks. Just like
Yeah, Jeremy's the go at the one mountain ride at Disneyland. What is the Big Thunder is the ride that I'm thinking of. It's been a while since I've taught Disney, you guys.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he's rusty at this.
I'm rusty, everybody. But for our first, that's not the right graphic that should be showing there. But for our first bit of news, guys, anyways, for our first bit of news from the Peak today, very sad and sudden news. This happened just the other day. Actor Chadwick Boseman has passed away of cancer at the age of 43, and I'm sure a lot of you will know him as his role in Black Panther as Black Panther in the film Black Panther. Boseman, of course, leaves behind an unmistakable mark on Hollywood and pop culture, and he also acted in his largest films and cemented his place in cinema history, all while battling colon cancer and receiving harsh cancer treatments. I believe he was first, or at least from what I understand, he was first diagnosed with it when Civil War, if you guys are Marvel fans, started filming. So that was in 2015, 14, somewhere back then. And ever since then, he's been in these films, battling this horrific, cancer sucks, you guys. I'm sure we can all agree on that. And we can also all get a big rest in peace for Mr. Chadwick Boseman. Never met him personally, but he seemed like a really great guy, a really chillax guy. I'd like to, get a beer with Mr. Boseman, but, that's not going to happen. But anyways, for our second bit, so a big rest in peace for Mr. Chadwick Boseman. He will be missed very greatly. And for our second bit of news from the Peak, this is very interesting as well. A possible redesign of the iconic Epcot character Figment has been revealed in the latest One Day at Disney short on Disney+. Now, as you can see from these images here, Figment looks kind of like a cartoon, I don't know what he looks like. He's of course updated. This piece of concept art here, his design is different, and I'm very interested to see what you all have to say on this, because of course Figment is a very beloved character in the Epcot lore, and I guess just the Disney Parks franchise in general. I never really considered the fact that Disney would ever redesign Figment, because his design, I guess, it's a classic. Why would you change what's not, why would you try and change what is already perfect? But for our third and final bit of news from the peak today. This is very exciting as well. The release date for the second season of the hit Disney Plus Star Wars drama, The Mandalorian, has been announced, and it is the 30th of October, so very excited. That's just almost not even less. Wait, what month are we in? Oh, we're in September.
It's September.
Wow. Time sure flies, you guys. Feels like just yesterday it was August. And now it's September.
I was going to say March, but yeah.
Yeah, that too. But very excited for the second season of The Mandalorian, as you guys know. I'm a big fan of the show. But let's start with Mr. Alex here. What are your thoughts here on all of these great bits of news from the peak that we have today?
Well, first, it's really sad, to hear of, people dying of colon cancer and stuff.
Yeah.
Cancer is something that, it's so tragic, and I don't wish it on anyone. And I hope soon that we can find some way to either treat it much better or eradicate it entirely.
Yeah.
As for Figment, I thought that was kind of interesting, although hard to see from your news from the peak box kind of covering all of it.
There it is.
But yes, and yeah, I mean, I wonder why, but I don't know. And then lastly, with what was the last one again?
The Mandalorian.
Oh, right. I'm probably not gonna watch it.
Oh no, Alex has been very outspoken of his thoughts on The Mandalorian, or at least the first season of The Mandalorian here on the show. Yeah, well, Jeremy.
Yes, he has.
Yes, he has.
Yeah, I mean the loss of Chadwick Boseman is shock and tragic and very sad. I went back and watched some of his other movies, Marshall, which I highly recommend.
Yeah, because he's in other movies,
about
not
Thurgood
just Marvel
Marshall.
movies, you guys.
Yeah, it's like it's fine in the Disney community. Of course, we will always remember him as Black Panther, and popular culture will as well. But this was a really fantastic actor who was doing incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Again, I watched the movie Marshall a couple days after he died. It was about Thurgood Marshall with a Supreme Court justice, and his last screen appearance is going to be an adaptation of an August Wilson play. So this isn't just anybody. This is a really fantastic actor, and it's very tragic. As for my sound is always choppy. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to fix it, and I don't know what to do. It isn't for me, but anyway. Figment, it's interesting. It's we don't know enough for me to comment or not. I don't know. It wasn't revealed as to why.
Yeah.
Or for what. People are speculating possibly a new cartoon featuring Figment, but that's just a suggestion. And I would have no reason to believe that they would then use that design if they were to ever redo Imagination. They tend to like to use all the things that are new. They won't go back to the original design, in my opinion, if this takes off as a popular thing for whatever it's being used for. But I'm open to it. I know it's weird to me because the original Figment design is so distinct and recognizable, and this is a pretty far departure from that look, but we'll see where it goes and for what it's even used. So yeah. And The Mandalorian, I'm very excited, and I'll watch it.
Yay, The Mandalorian. All right, yeah, like I said, some great pieces of news from the peak, and it was kind of tough to choose what kind of news to discuss today, just because we had missed 3 weeks. So, we didn't necessarily, we picked the ones that we thought would be the best to have discussions about, but yeah, Mulan, of course, came out this past Friday, I believe, or Thursday, whenever, on Disney Plus. I haven't seen it. I'm probably, I don't think I'll watch it. It comes out for real in December. I think on December 4th is when it comes out for free for everybody to watch on Disney Plus with a normal subscription. So, if you guys are interested, just wait a couple more months. I'm sure you can wait. No one's really, banging on the movie theater doors to watch the new Mulan remake. But anyways, moving on from news from the peak, we do have some great main topics today, including our first topic. John Boyega discusses Star Wars and race. And then, of course, we have the COVID rundown, headlines rundown of the week. And then finally, we have Disneyland possibly ready to be reopening soon. Very excited to get into that. But first, today we are going to be talking about this very great article, actually, by GQ Magazine, the UK version of GQ Magazine. And links to all these articles will be down in the description below for everybody to go ahead and read up on. And I'd suggest that you guys go ahead and take a read on this article, because this is a very beefy article that has a lot to sort of pick from. And of course we're going to be summarizing it to the best of our extent here, because it is like it's a lot of words, it's a lot of paragraphs, but it's a good read. And I guess we can sort of start here with a big pull quote from the article that they've been publicizing. Quote, this is from John Boyega, of course. Quote, "What I say to Disney is do not market a black character as important, then push them aside." And that's sort of the theme that's going to be taking over this sort of article and this discussion that we're going to be getting into. Yeah, like I said, a great article. Go read it for yourself if you have the time. Like I said, it's a lengthy article. But as many of you guys know, John Boyega has been very outspoken about his support of the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm sure you've all seen the, I think it was like a Twitter clip that went viral of him speaking at the London protest on this past June the 3rd. Great. We'll talk about John Boyega. He's becoming one of my favorite celebrities in the modern era. But I'll try and quote from his sort of speech that he said there at the protest. I'll summarize that because that has a lot of context into what this discussion is. Quote, "I need you guys to understand how painful this is," and I'm going to be glancing over all the curse words that he uses because family-friendly show, no curse words. He tells the mass of raised fists and camera phones, his voice crackling, "I need you to understand how painful it is to be reminded every day that your race means nothing. That isn't the case anymore. This is never the case anymore." Voices whoop and spur him on. "We are a physical representation of our support for George Floyd. We are a physical representation of our support for Sandra Bland, for Stephen Lawrence, and for Mark Duggan. I'm sorry if I pronounced that name wrong." And of course, this all relates to what he recently said in regards to his time in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, the Star Wars franchise, stating that while Daisy Ridley's Rey and Adam Driver's Kylo Ren got full arcs, characters like Finn and Rose were sidelined in the finale, The Rise of Skywalker. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen that movie. Quote, "You get yourself involved in projects and you're not necessarily going to like everything. But what I would say to Disney is do not bring out a black character, market them to be much more important in the franchise than they are, and then have them pushed to the side. It's not good. I'll say it straight up. You know what to do with these other people, but when it came to Kelly of Rose and when it came to John Boyega, F all. Frick all is what he said. And I'm sure you guys can sort of notice this as well if you've been following the sequel trilogy for the past, since 2014, I believe. John Boyega was featured very heavily in the marketing for The Rise of Skywalker, even in shots of him, the iconic trailer shot of him holding the lightsaber facing down Kylo Ren. And then, in the actual movie, he gets hurt. And then it's actually Rey who is the secret Jedi, not, John Boyega, the defector stormtrooper, which would have probably been a much more interesting story to go along with. But then, of course, in what was the second movie called? The last
Jedi.
Rian Johnson film? Oh, The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi. He was hurt for most of the movie, and then he, of course, went on that side quest and didn't really do much in the whole movie. With Rose, which is very sad to see. And then I know you guys have seen The Rise of Skywalker because we had a big discussion about it, I'm sure, a few episodes ago once it came out, and how divisive that film was, and how, like John Boyega stated, there was no story arc for Finn, no story arc for Rose either. And that's sort of the discussion that we're going to be getting into here. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on everything that Mr. John Boyega has been saying these past few weeks about Star Wars and everything?
He's absolutely right. And this isn't a new problem for Disney. He's absolutely right. And listen, the cast has actually been, outspoken about this even before this great interview. I think this interview is kind of the straw that's breaking the camel's back, because he's being really outspoken. But you can watch the press interviews, and I'm telling you that, especially Oscar Isaac, he doesn't hold himself back in those press and those PR, and those are PR interviews. He expresses directly that he almost never wants to work for Disney again because of the way they sidelined his character, Finn, and his character's Poe, by the way. Poe, Finn, Rose. He was very upset about that, not because he wanted more screen time, but because he felt that there were very interesting characters that had the potential for very, very moving and interesting arcs, and Disney completely was against that being the case because they care more about their markets, and especially their overseas market. And honestly, let's not pretend America is any, they carry our market too. And so it's an ongoing problem in Disney, and it's not just with people of color. It's also with LGBTQ. It's the same thing. I remember when Beauty and the Beast, the remake, Beauty and the Beast, the 2017 remake was going through its sort of PR phase. There was this press release in which Disney said that there will be an exclusively gay moment. That was the exact wording they used. An exclusively gay moment in Beauty and the Beast. And everyone was like, oh my God, how amazing. First of all, I was skeptical right off the bat. An exclusively gay moment. Anyway, then of course we learned that LeFou would be gay, and we were like, okay, that's great. And then you see the movie, and he was completely thrown to the side, and his sexuality was used as a punchline at the end of the movie. It was incredibly offensive, and you can talk to anybody in the LGBT community about that. It comes from the same place. They make these announcements, and they don't actually follow through. And I think John Boyega is totally in the right. I think Oscar Isaac is totally in the right. I think I forget the actress who played Rose, I'm going blank on her name, but I think she's absolutely
Kelly
right
Marie
to be upset
Tran.
about the way. Thank you.
Yes.
About the way they were treated, and yes, I absolutely think it has to do with race and sexuality because of the Poe and Finn thing as well.
Yeah, Alex, what about you? What are your thoughts on what Mr. John Boyega has been saying?
I think he's right. I think that there could have been an incredible character arc with his character, and a story that really would have been very interesting and really helped carry the movies. I also think, though, that the other characters in the film, including the main characters, were lacking a character arc as well. I feel like no character in any of those three movies got any kind of character arc whatsoever. So it's not like his character was singled out. His character was sidelined, for trying to go with the story about Rey and stuff like that, which is true. But at the same time, like, those characters got a bad treatment in the films as well. I think the films were just made awfully, and they had no idea how they were going to make each one as they made them. And so I think they should redo those movies and actually have strong character arcs among not just the main characters, but the supporting cast. So it'd be nice to have a main character that was a minority. That'd be kind of cool.
I was gonna say they set up in Force Awakens the potential for this really great ensemble piece where you have all of these great characters that are unique and defined, that go through their own journey, that are all the center of attention. And I don't know, it just fell apart. It fell apart. And I think the reason why we're disappointed, and I have nothing against Rey as well. I think it's great to have a female figure at the center of the Star Wars story as well. But the reason why I think their character development fell short is actually because they sidelined all the characters that made the other characters who they are. If you sideline and remove a character from being with someone who brings out their personality, then of course that, Rey doesn't become as interesting because she's so totally separated from Finn the entire time. And same with Poe. Same with Poe and Finn.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you? It would be as if they separated Han from Leia for the rest of the first trilogy, and you'd miss this ensemble piece of the three of those characters going on this journey together. And can you imagine if Luke did his own thing, Leia did her own thing, and Han did his own thing?
Yeah.
I think that's where it fell short for the new trilogy.
They used the original characters, Luke, Han, and Leia. They used them as like little puppets to carry around in the movies to say, "Oh, look, here's your nostalgia," But it was like there was no purpose for them whatsoever. They served no purpose in the movies. And then, John Boyega's character, going back to him, like I would have thought, like, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but in his character in the movie was like brainwashed into being a stormtrooper, right?
Well, it's complicated the way that they have it set up. So from my understanding, the new Empire, whatever they're called, they like kidnap children and then just like force them to be the stormtroopers. That's from my understanding, but it's complicated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he said in like the second or third movie that he basically woke up and it was like a dream. And so I think he was trying to say it was like a form of brainwashing or whatever, and he just kind of realized that, that there's a whole other world out there. And I just thought, like, I'm like, that's a really weak way of developing his character. Like, it would have been really cool if he started off as a truly bad character.
Sure.
Who defected, and then you saw this whole story, this inner turmoil over 3 movies where he's trying to decide between what's good and what's bad. And that would have been really cool. And you see him, evolve with, other characters around him, and how, Rey could have shaped his character and he in turn shaping her character. It's just like, there was a lot of potential there, and they did nothing with any of these characters. It's so sad.
Yeah, and I feel like from my perspective, John Boyega's character was like the most interesting out of all the original
I agree.
characters from The Force Awakens, because you have the stormtrooper who, runs away from his post, and then he tries to discover himself along the way, and then that just, didn't really go anywhere. It's really sad to see. And then also Mark pointed out in the chat as well, tinfoil hat on, he said, the Mandalorian announcement was released less than an hour when this article was dropped. So kind of, if you want to look any deeper into that, Disney might be possibly trying to cover up this article from him with that, announcement of the Season 2 Mandalorian coming out. But, tinfoil hat kind of stuff, speculation. We don't really know for sure if it was just a coincidence. But yeah, it is very sad. Very, very sad to see. And yeah, like I said, John Boyega is becoming one of my favorite celebrities of the modern, of these times, just because he is so outspoken about these social issues. And he's also, I love the way on Twitter he always attacks the Star Wars fanboys who, come at him trying to attack him and stuff. And he is like relentless because he doesn't have any ties to Disney anymore. The movies are done, so what's the point? But
right.
Yeah, I have a question to sort of propose to you guys here. Whose fault would you say would be these issues of John Boyega and, of course, the other characters being sidelined? Would you call it Disney's fault, Lucasfilm's fault even, or even would you call it the director's fault? Especially, at least with J.J. Abrams, he initially set up these characters to have these, developments moving forward, and then you have Rian Johnson coming in for the third film with his own take of how things should go. So who would you guys personally blame? If you were to place the blame on one entity, who would you place the blame on in the situation?
I would place the blame on all of them.
Sure.
It's not just one person. No, I mean, I telling you, everyone right now, it was not just one person. It was everybody. And to begin with, it was Disney, because they were more concerned about getting their celebrity directors and producers and their celebrity cast. And they really didn't care about where the story went, because as long as you have your celebrities, you have movie ticket sales.
Sure.
And so that was the number one thing. And then And then the next thing that Disney did was when they got the writers in and stuff like that. Well, I say writers, it was written by the director. Like, you don't get a plumber to, construct a building. It's not his job. So anyway, so yeah.
Well, in film writer directors are pretty normal.
It's normal, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea.
There are many writer directors who are very, very good at what they do.
Yes, if you are a good writer, but just because you're a director doesn't mean you can be a writer. You know what I'm saying? Like a writer can be anybody, but not anybody can be a writer. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
So there are good writer directors, but J.J. Abrams and then Ryan Johnson and then the other guy were not at all good writer directors. Neither. Yeah. But anyway, so what I was saying was that, when J.J. Abrams came in to help create the first of the 3 movies, one of the first things that Disney backed him on was like where he basically, like, they were going to have Lucas be this guy that was kind of helping to provide like a course for how the story should go, because he's the original creator. He knows what a Star Wars movie is. And he had all these notes and everything, and they basically just said, we're not looking at any of those. We're doing our own thing, which is fine. But now you see the consequence of that. I do not consider these 3 movies, Star Wars movies. They don't feel like Star Wars movies, and not in a good way. They don't, like, The Phantom Menace didn't feel like a Star Wars movie, but it felt like something different that could be a Star Wars movie. It just so happens that it had really bad characters and poor writing, but it had the potential to be a really good Star Wars movie. But nevertheless, the direction that J.J. Abrams took, it just started this really bad course for that river of awfulness to flow. And what ended up happening is after they threw out Lucas's notes and said, we're not listening to any of this, they went and did their own thing, which again can be fine. But then what ended up happening was they didn't know where the story was going to go. They were writing it as they went along. And then they had ideas, like Abrams had an idea for what he wanted to do with all 3. But then when the second one came out, they threw out Abrams' previous ideas and said, let's just have this other director steer it from here. And then he went and put it down the toilet. And then the third movie was like, okay, now let's pick up all this random, overflowing poop on the floor and put it together into one solid piece and see if we can shove it down people's throats.
Sure.
So that's literally what happened. And through all 3 movies, I was very outspoken about how much I despised them. And of course, everyone's telling me, no, they're going to, by the time you see the 3rd movie, you're going to see it's all going to come together. And boy, did it. So it's just like, I'm not going to say that I predicted it, but I predicted it.
Alex is a psychic, you guys.
Yeah. Psychic.
So first of all, I don't think The Last Jedi was a bad movie. I think Ryan Johnson is actually a very talented writer director, even outside of the Star Wars movies he is. And I didn't think it ruined the trilogy as much as people say it did. There were many reasons why Rise of Skywalker was underwhelming. Sure, having an uncohesive vision is definitely part of that, but I don't necessarily think The Last Jedi is bad on its own terms. However, to answer Matt's question, in listening to what John Boyega has to say and listening to what Oscar Isaac has to say, they seem to think that the voice that limited their voice was Disney, and I have to listen to that. And I think it's true. It's true. Disney cares more about the marketing research than they do the actual imagination of the people who go to the movies and the people who make movies. Mm-hmm. And it's the reason why a lot of these movies in the past 15 or so years that Disney has put out have been, in my opinion, pretty mediocre. Mm-hmm. and the new Star Wars trilogy was no exception. And I do blame everyone is responsible in some way. I'm sure J.J. Abrams could have fought harder for his cast. I'm sure all of that is true. But from what I understand, from what I hear from the cast and what the cast openly talks about, it goes back to Disney. So I have to put most of the blame on Disney.
Yeah, and the thing that kind of sucks about all of this is that we'll never really get a true answer as to, what exactly went wrong with all these characters, with with all these actors. It's always just going to be, one throwing blows at the other and then the other, doing the same back. But how do you think Disney should move on from here? Because it was announced recently that Kelly Marie Tran was cast as the lead in Disney's newest animated film, Raya, I believe it's called. Someone said it in chat. The dragon looks very nice. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
The animated one?
Yeah, the animated, their newest animated one, yeah. So how do you guys personally think Disney should, move on from this? Maybe there's some mistakes that they can learn from to sort of, fix the relationships with these actors, or maybe even learn from that and continue on in the future.
Who should go first? Me or who should go first?
Jeremy, go first.
So it's actually a very complicated thing. The good news is that Bob Iger, at least, I'm sure Chapek's just a continuation of Iger, really. But I know Bob Iger does actually care about doing the right thing when it comes to diversity. So that is a plus. Do they always? That being said, because they look down at the papers and the graphs and the charts, and they end up doing the bare minimum. And again, it's why everything doesn't feel like there's a lot of passion. There's a lot of boldness, ambition, imaginative work being done. That being said, Disney is dedicating their work to branching out and telling more diverse stories. However, I hate to sound cynical, but it's important to be cynical about large multinational corporate conglomerates that are enormously powerful. It's important to be skeptical of that. So Disney's goal, and nothing I'm saying right now is conspiracy. It's my analysis, but it's my analysis of information that's already out there. I want to make that clear. The Disney company has made it very clear that in transitioning to Bob Chapek, the goal in this administration, if we want to categorize change in leadership in a company as an administration, the goal is to expand international markets. And if you want to expand international markets, you have to tell stories that those international markets are going to be interested in. When you look at the case of New Epcot, it's, they're trying to tie in intellectual property that ties into the different countries that exist in the World Showcase. Not because they think that that's a great way of sharing world culture, but because the New Epcot is essentially going to be a place that promotes the Disney brand as an international brand, as an international company. So these decisions to tell diverse stories, sure, from our perspective, it's ultimately a good thing to tell stories from all around the world, from more than one people, from more than one perspective. But it also is true that it is being done to expand their brand as being an international brand. It's what I always go back to saying, how Disney's a master at rebranding the company without the people actually noticing that the brand that the company's being rebranded. And that's why we so easily accept that the company has always been the way that it is whenever there's a change in leadership. But don't be mistaken. The reason why all of this is happening, and the reason why it's often the bare minimum, is because it's more so about expanding to the international market as opposed to genuinely telling stories about humanity in all the way and in all the different ways.
Sure, yeah, really well said, Jeremy. Alex, what about you? How do you think Disney should move forward when it comes to this problem that we've been discussing?
It's not an easy solution because the problem we Americans have is we see the world through our eyes. So we want this diversity, we want this inclusion, but what we forget is that not every country in the rest of the world wants that. And so places like China, for instance, they really could care less about diversity and stuff in movies. In fact, they don't want it. One of the reasons why Disney films are lacking in openly gay characters or openly gay scenes, for instance, is because movies that have that are not allowed to be shown in China, which is one of their biggest box offices, is China. And Disney can't afford to not make money off of those movies from China. So therefore they remove those scenes and stuff. Even certain movies, they have scenes edited out specifically to be shown in China. So it's interesting because, we want these things like diverse characters and spotlights on these diverse characters and things, but depending on what country that film is shown in, they will either have to remove that scene for that country or just not show it there. And that's really hard for Disney to do. The easiest thing to do is to make one film and make it so it makes everybody happy. And unfortunately, when you do that, you completely water down anything about the movie that makes it good. So that's one of the reasons why I've been so cynical about Disney movies recently, is because they keep trying to get that international market to make money. And I get it, but their movies are becoming more and more bland, more and more just lacking that diversity. And it's great when you have things like, I don't know what this animated movie is called. What is it?
Raya something. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Raya.
Yeah.
That's cool, but that movie is going to be lacking in diversity. And from what I know, based off of what rumors say, it's not even specifically from a specific country. It takes place in a different world that is somewhat Asian, but not necessarily a specific Asian. So,
well, I mean, if you have people of color on the screen, that is ultimately a good thing,
Yes, it is. It really is. But I don't think like how that movie Soul is coming out, right? And the main character is black, but through most of the movie, he is a animated like blob, right? And that's gotten a lot of people really ticked off for the right reasons. But there's a reason why he's a blob for most of the movie, because they know the international markets won't watch that movie if it's a black character through the whole way through. So,
well, sadly, I think they're looking at the American market when it comes to that as well.
Oh, yes, of course. But I mean, but you know what I'm trying to say here, right?
Yeah, I do.
What I'm trying to say is that they're trying to satisfy the whole world at once, and that leads to a watered down movie. So it just does. It's just, 1 + 1 = 2. That's just how it has to happen. Or 1 - 1 = 0. 1 - 1 = 0. There we go. So, yay, math. But yeah, that's my opinion on this. It's just complicated.
Yeah, I agree. It is complicated, but I agree with Jeremy as well. This is a multi-quadrillion billion-dollar company, and they have to please, all of their audience. So it just, I guess you'd expect Disney to do the right thing, because that's what we've been expecting from them ever since, Walt first founded the company, being a pioneer in not just technology, but in filmmaking. And, it seems, we could have had this discussion a while ago and it still applied. It seems like Disney has sort of lost that direction, which is really nothing new. But, yeah, so I'd love to hear what you guys in the chat have to think when it comes to this topic, because, you got to agree with Mr. John Boyega. He seems... he's really outspoken about this, and he seems very passionate as well, along with, like Jeremy mentioned, Oscar Isaac, and the other actors I can't remember off the top of my head, Kelly Marie Tran as well. So yeah, big shout out to them for trying to break the mold when it comes to these films.
Can I say one more thing?
Or just saying the truth.
Yeah, the truth. Yes, Alex.
You mentioned Walt Disney and how he didn't He didn't really care what people thought. He made a movie that he thought would be good, right? Well, one of the things that he didn't have to deal with was basically like most of the world market. Back in his time, like American movies today, they worry about two countries. Will it do well in America? And most importantly, will it do well in China? But back in Walt's time, there were only two areas of the world that they cared about, and that was America, number one, and Europe, number two. And European countries, you can pretty much show them anything that you make, in America, and they're very accepting of what they see. So I think like it was probably easier back then when all he had to worry about was Europe. But now today, the company has to worry about China. And I think that's what makes it so different. I think that's what makes their movies so much worse.
Actually, it was. I mean, I think I know what you're trying to say, but wasn't it very difficult for Walt with the European market?
At times, depending on what he was trying to show, yeah. They had their own things that they preferred to see or not to see on film, but for the most part, European countries had very much, the same type of Western society that we have in America back then.
Sure, yeah, it's in terms of like the people's tastes, but but in terms of having to deal with the rise of fascism in Europe, it was very difficult to get his movies shown in Europe, and it did affect the Walt Disney Company a lot economically. The difference is now,
like during the World War,
but
not during the 50s and 60s.
Oh, sure, absolutely, right. Yes. Yeah. Sure. But I guess I was talking more about because Disney, I mean, China is an authoritarian country, and Disney has no issue collaborating with that. And whereas that was different in today. Yes, today.
Oh, yeah.
Which is very different than the 30s and 40s.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, you back in 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, not many Disney films were even shown in China or the other countries on the Asian continent, because back then a lot of those countries were still showing a lot of their own stuff. The American culture was still not very widely accepted in any of those countries back then, and they were trying to westernize a lot more, but the movies themselves were not always big hits there. I think you had to have like a movie that didn't have very much talking back then in order for it to work. Like, well, now I can't think of the movie, but I think one of Howard Hughes's movies did really well in China and Japan because it didn't have very much talking in it, mostly just action. So I think it did really well. But Disney movies have usually a lot of talking in it, so that's why it didn't work out so well back then. But I think we're getting into a really complicated conversation.
I guess the point that I was trying to say, and I'm trying to be as clear as possible, is that the reason for the censorship in China is not because of people's taste; it's because of an authoritarian government, which was very similar to it being hard to get movies shown in the 30s and 40s and other authoritarian governments that happened to be in Europe. So I do think it was more difficult in the 30s and 40s because those movies really couldn't be shown in that period, not because of people's taste, but because of whatever government is in charge. Today, our large corporations have no loyalty to a specific country, which is why there's no issue if the Walt Disney Company, which is, again, a huge multinational corporate conglomerate. I can't emphasize how big that is. Is able to collaborate with an authoritarian regime just fine. And the consequence, though, are watered down movies. We agree. Are the watered down movies, if there's a gay character, it's a one scene character with a one line reference, so they can overdub the line or cut the scene completely. I agree with you, but that's that's why it's complicated.
Yes.
Yeah, like Alex's very complicated discussion. But I'd still love to hear what you all have to think in the comments below. How your reaction to what Mr. John Boyega said. How maybe if you were Disney, how you would go forward, move on, make some progress in this area. I'd love to hear what you guys have to think. And before we get into the headlines in our second topic, because we don't have a what's it called, an attraction retrospective, because I normally do the sponsor break then. Let's go ahead and take a quick little second to hear about the show's sponsors, and then we'll be back with our COVID headlines and then our final topic of the day. Yeah. If you guys are wondering where you can find even more family-friendly live streams just like this one, head on over to theliveplace.com. The Live Place is your headquarters for great family-friendly live streams. They cover anything from Disney to other vacation spots, various variety shows, and have some amazing streamers like Resort TV 1 and myself. Also, be sure to check out puckermint.com, where you can find amazing pins and stickers. Puckermint is based out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, just a few hours from where I live. And since I'm a big believer in supporting local artists, we decided to partner up. Be sure to use the coupon code down below when you make your next order. Again, that's puckermint.com and puckermint on Instagram. And that brings us to this week's COVID. Well, I guess before we move on, we have I forgot to mention, we have a voicemail from this past August the 20th. So it's not a voicemail from today's discussion, but I forgot to. Yeah, this was when we had the time off, so we haven't had a chance to listen to it. But let's go ahead and take a listen here. Oh wait, you can't hear it. Hold on.
No.
There. Well, thank you for that lovely voicemail. I'm going to be honest. I haven't watched it yet. It's been in my watch later. I add a lot of videos to my watch later, and I go through them like one at a time, and it's on there, but I haven't seen it yet. I don't know about you guys if you've seen it, but...
No, it's on my watch list too. I'm very excited to watch it. I don't know why I haven't gotten around to doing it yet, but of course it's getting all the praise it probably deserves. And I can't wait to watch it.
The Halix documentary, the rock band that used to play in Tomorrowland and in Disneyland's Tomorrowland, Defunctland, did a sort of documentary on that. Yeah,
everybody's trying to get me to watch that one.
Well,
yeah, I plan on watching it. It's supposed to be fantastic. I can't wait.
Yeah, I guess you guys for some reason couldn't hear the voicemail, but yeah, that's what the voicemail. I mean, we could hear it, and it showed, so that's kind of weird. But yeah, that's what the voicemail was about. If we'd seen the documentary yet, and at the end, my answer is I have not seen it yet, but it's on my list of things to get to, and yeah. But now it's time to move into this week's COVID rundown.
This week on Matterhorn Monday, Matt and company continue their reports and discussions on COVID-19 and its impact on the Disney company around the world.
All right, everybody, back in the saddle, settle down, put your seatbelts on for this week's COVID rundown for our first COVID headline here today. Disneyland warns guests of limited capacity at downtown Disney during Labor Day weekend. And I guess that's sort of I'd like to sort of touch on downtown Disney being open during this in our final topic, because I think it's very interesting. That we'll get into that. But for our second topic here, unionized Walt Disney World cast members to receive pay raise while some remain furloughed. And of course, all these articles will be linked in the description down below for you to read further into. Third headline, Walt Disney World extends shortened park hours through November 22nd. Fourth headline, Walt Disney World Resort hotels at post-COVID shutdown high of 80. I just confused myself there. Walt Disney World Resort hotels at post-COVID shutdown high of 80% occupancy for Labor Day weekend. And finally here, Disney pushes back the reopening of the Polynesian Hotel in Florida to next summer. That's kind of a big headline there. But for our final topic of the day, you guys have been wanting us to talk about it. I've been wanting to talk about it. Disneyland Park in California. When will it open? When will Disneyland Resort finally reopen? We don't know, is basically the summarization. But we're going to be getting into some great discussions here. We can make predictions, but, we'll probably be wrong. Progress being made on Disneyland reopening, says Governor. In a recent press conference, California Governor Gavin Newsom stated that progress is being made towards Disney reopening, Disneyland and California Adventure reopening. And there's a quote here, quote, "We're making a lot of progress in that space. The reason we set it aside is we still have work to do. Progress is still being made. We're still working on some details. As soon as we're at that point where we can make that public, we will." So that quote kind of just said nothing, really, is what that quote said. They're working on it, and that's all they can say, I guess. Here is the interesting part as well. Theme parks, I have a sort of graph here that we can sort of base this off of. Theme parks have been placed in their own section of California's reopening guidelines in order to ease restrictions on theme parks and allow for proper socially distanced park days. Park days seem to be in the near future at Disneyland Resort, as the lights have been turned on at the parks and the preparations for reopening, it seems, have begun. So, Alex, as you used to live near Disneyland, you used to visit Disneyland every week. What are your thoughts here on progress? The quote from the governor, quote unquote, progress being made for Disneyland. Well, I guess I should preface this by saying I think it was Josh Damara or some other high up that said that Disneyland has been ready to open since I think it was last month or June or July, I think, that Disneyland has been ready to reopen. They just needed the go button from the government, and they haven't gotten that yet. So based off of all of that, Alex, what are your thoughts here on this very interesting topic about Disneyland?
Well, when they say ready to reopen, that's really more of just a bunch of words than it really is a meaning. Because it's not like they ever shut down the park necessarily. I mean, no, it's no different than when Disneyland would be closed at 3 a.m. waiting for it to reopen the next morning. It's everything was shut off, but not to a point where it required weeks and weeks of switching everything back on. And I think what really they mean is that they have their schedules and lists prepared for when they are able to bring cast members back, but they would still need to do, I think they said 2 to 3 weeks of training of every cast member before they return to their job, because you want to make sure the cast, all their stuff that they learned is refreshed back into their memory. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that if they say let's open tomorrow that they'll open tomorrow. No, if they say, all right, governor says it's okay to reopen, then you can expect to wait 3 weeks and it'll reopen. But yeah, it's funny because my opinion on this is one of those where people don't like what I have to say either way, which is that don't laugh at me.
I'm laughing with you. Which is that I really
I still am. I still feel that as long as COVID is still significantly around, and and is still a threat to people, I don't think the park should reopen. I just don't. I think that Walt Disney World certainly reopened too early. Let alone if it must reopen tomorrow. That being, if I don't know if that made sense to you guys. But yeah, I really don't think that Disneyland Park should reopen anytime soon. It's just not safe for people. And there's people that don't like that. The people that, first of all, don't believe that the pandemic is real. Those people obviously don't like that opinion. But then there's the other people who do believe the pandemic is real, but think that that things have to reopen sometime. And I agree, things do have to reopen sometime, but I don't know. It's just one of those things where a simple answer is just not gonna cut it.
Yeah.
It's just not. I mean, even my opinion that the park shouldn't reopen isn't necessarily the best opinion either, because people do need jobs. But at the same time, it's like jobs at the cost of what? Somebody dying? Like, I have family members that got sick with COVID, and they could have gotten sick much sooner, or even worse, if people were still going out in mass and getting sick. So I don't know.
Yeah. Jeremy, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really complicated. I mean, I agree that as long as COVID is a threat, opening up our mass public spaces is difficult. However, the government isn't doing much to supply people affected by COVID economically to help them out. So I understand the anxiety of furloughed cast members who need a job, who need their job. So it is very complicated given how we've dealt with COVID on a health level and an economic level in this country. It's just complicated all around. That being said, I understand the caution. First of all, California in July, cases surged. So we absolutely could not open on July 17th. Cases have started, new cases have started to come down a little bit, but it's still, I think, September 4th was like 5,000 new cases, which is still a significant amount. Now, California is a huge state, but that being said, Southern California is where a lot of the California population lies. It's the city of Los Angeles alone is ginormous. And then, you go south and you go ahead and get in Anaheim, and that has a concentrated population as well. But it's hard because if we measure this to Disney World, now Disney World hasn't seen the most ginormous crowds, right? We see these tweets and these pictures like, wow, it's empty this day, and that's because at Disney World there are a lot of locals who enjoy Disney World. I'm sure there's a lot less locals going because it's still out of control in Florida, in terms of new cases per day and stuff like that. But Disney World is the vacation kingdom of the world, right? It is where people from all over the country go, people from all over the world go, and that amounts to the crowds. In Disneyland, the crowds are because Disneyland is a locals park. That doesn't mean people don't vacation and visit Disneyland, but people don't, unless you're an avid Disney fan, people don't exclusively vacation at Disneyland. They put it a part of their Southern California vacation. But the crowds amount to Disneyland being a locals park. It is where Southern California, which is a huge amount of people, go to for their source of recreation. That amounts to the crowds. The fact that Southern Californians are very hungry to have that recreation back, and we see this with Downtown Disney as a case study, the crowds are going to be tremendous. So I understand the governor's hesitancy in really trying to, I hope they are working on it. I believe that they are really trying to create a solid plan, because there is a difference in who visits each park. You know, it's hard to measure, oh, Disney World wasn't so bad, but it's different people visit those parks. So Disneyland really relies on the locals. It's one of the reasons why Disney tries to make it difficult for locals to go to the park, because they know that that's the main population that goes to the park. So yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch, Jeremy mentioned downtown Disney being so crowded. If you guys have been like watching any vlogs or like just been, if I have notifications on, I think for the Disney Twitter account that like they tweet out like whenever the parks reach capacity or whenever like a parking structure, parking lot reaches capacity, I get like notifications from that all day long about downtown Disney reaching capacity, and that they're, you know, closing off the parking lots, closing off the shopping district for new people to enter. Because yeah, if you guys like have been keeping track of that, downtown Disney has been popping off, you guys. So many people have been visiting downtown Disney. Even the article, the news headline that we referred to earlier, what was the headline that we talked about? It was, Disneyland warns guests of limited capacity at downtown Disney during Labor Day weekend. They're expecting, you know, all these people to come to downtown Disney because Disneyland's not open. I feel like the locals are treating downtown Disney as sort of like a pseudo Disneyland to get that Disney magic, even though it's just like a mall. It's a Walmart. So many people shouldn't be there during especially these times. So it is very interesting to me comparing that to to Walt Disney World as well, and then sort of with that in the perspective of Disneyland not being crowded, because yeah, I do feel like Disneyland would be jam-packed if they were to open today, just like Jeremy said, based off of how many people are visiting downtown Disney. So, and again, you know, we've talked about this a while in the past about whether or not Disneyland should reopen, whether it's a good idea, whether it's a bad idea, and I guess, you know, I'll just echo what we've said before. Disneyland should not be open if there's no, you know, readily available vaccine for COVID-19. But then again, there's the double-edged sword. Disney, you know, the workers need their jobs. They've been furloughed since, a lot of them have been furloughed since March almost. And, you know, that's 7 months, I can't do math, of, you know, being out of work for Disney. I'm sure a lot of them have had to find side jobs, and I'm sure there's even some people in chat who, you know, work for Disney who can voice their opinion on that as well, or even if they'd like to call 575-386-5814 on that experience so far. Yeah, it is, I don't know, it's very interesting. There was a tweet by I can't remember his name, Scott Gustin, I think. He's very sort of in the know when it comes to sort of Disney parks and stuff like that. And he did tweet out something the other day of like a screenshot of the Disney Parks Twitter account with his notifications turned on. So that sort of indicated to me that they were being ready to announce something. And then, of course, there were the rumors of Disneyland opening later in September, which is this month, I guess, later this month. But, you know, who really knows? Who really knows at this point? But yeah, I guess. Jeremy, do you have any other thoughts on this topic?
Listen, here's what we do know: if Disneyland has to reopen, we do know that wearing a mask does slow the spread. Doesn't prevent the spread; it slows the spread, mixed with good social distancing. As far as I know, it's been a while since I checked. There are no active cases tied to the Walt Disney World Resort. It can be done, but they will have to really create a plan that doesn't overcrowd the parks, and they'll have to really enforce social distancing and wearing the mask, and it might be doable.
Might. Yeah. Alex, what about you?
I think it's really difficult to say. I mean, for one thing, I don't believe what they say about no cases being linked to Walt Disney World. That's true. That to me sounds mathematically impossible. And we know that the Florida government has been completely lying about their cases.
That's
so
true.
What if they're also lying about where people are getting it? So
Absolutely.
it's, and of course they want people to keep coming to Florida. So are they really going to let people know? Is Disney going to let people know that people are getting sick at their parks? No. So, I feel like if the one in California opened, we'd probably be hearing the same thing. Oh, there's no cases linked to Disneyland. It might either be the government, California government trying to slow that, or it might be Disney trying to slow that because, heck, no one dies at Disneyland, right? They die at the hospital.
Mhm.
So
And
that's the
that
same
is-
thing.
Exact, and that is the perfect case, Alex, for advocating for. Maybe it's a little late now. It's never too late. If we had a national testing and contact tracing plan,
Mhm.
we would avoid that issue completely because we would be able to know where the disease is spreading, how it's spreading, and who has it.
Mhm.
Okay, a national
And-
plan, not a state and local plan, a national plan.
Yeah, and we wouldn't even be here now, what is it? 8 months or 9 months into the spread of the virus in
6
the
months,
US.
Yeah.
6 months since it spread in the US?
Yeah, March. So mid-March, early March.
It seems
That was
like
just
longer.
when the parks closed, was it? Well, anyway, let's just say 6 months. We wouldn't be here 6 months later if 6 months ago we would have just immediately social distance and self-isolated everybody and let the virus not spread, just isolate it. And then we would have been probably, we probably would have had 3-4 weeks of staying at home and then everything would have reopened again. It's just amazing to me that, 6 months later, we're still arguing about what we should do. And it's just like, wow, does the government, does nobody learn anything? Like, I'm sorry. It's just a stressing topic.
Yeah.
I know.
Ben said in the chat he had it in February. Still can't sing
Mhm.
or yell. He still coughs.
Yeah.
And he also said the NBA shut down and Tom Hanks got sick and we all panicked. So that I felt like that was pretty funny.
That's true. It all happened at once.
Yeah.
I remember that week. Yeah.
Everyone was like, Tom Hanks got sick. Oh no, we're next.
Yeah, so it is very interesting, and I believe Josh Tomorrow also said that the reservations for Walt Disney World were quote-unquote here to stay, so whatever that means, in the context of
Yeah,
that,
I don't know what that means. Yeah.
that could possibly apply to Disneyland as well once it eventually reopens, reservations to get into the park, which I'm sure it'll be much more difficult to get reservations for Disneyland than it is for Walt Disney World, just because the capacity is so much lower. But, like I said, we're not experts on this whatsoever. We can give our educated guesses from the experience that we have looking on. And, I believe, unless you guys have any final thoughts, that might wrap up this topic. Any final thoughts?
About the topic? No, I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys, we did it. We made it through episode 147 of Matterhorn Mondays after a full 3 weeks off of the show. We're glad to be back. We hope you all enjoyed this episode. And, Alex, do you have anything you'd like to say before we close off today's episode?
No, I don't think so.
Jeremy.
Yeah. Make sure you're registered to vote. You can. I don't know if my DMs are open on Twitter. You can DM me if you're confused about that process, how to check. You can DM me. I'll send you resources for your specific state. Make sure you're registered to vote and check once a week. There's been a lot of wonky stuff going on. If you're planning on mailing in your ballot, request it if you have to request it as soon as possible and send it in right away. If you're planning on voting in person, really check what those guidelines are going to be. Check the logistics about your polling place and get there early. Okay? Elections are very important, so please vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm just telling you to vote.
It's coming faster than you think, you guys. And November is when the vote? I can't remember off the top of my head. but
November 3rd
November 3rd, everybody.
is election day. But if you're mailing in your ballot, the election day is far before that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, what Jeremy said, I reiterate everything he said. But yeah, as you all know, links to everything will be down in the description below, whether it be the articles that we refer to or our social media, all that jazz. Yeah, go watch Alex's new Magic Kingdom history video. Link will also be down below for his channel for you guys to go ahead and check that out. And I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I don't think we are forgetting anything. I think that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Matterhorn Mondays. Oh yeah, have a great Labor Day weekend. Don't go out and party with a lot of people, you guys. Stay home and drink by yourself if that's what you want to do. Family show, drinking orange juice, of course. But yeah, so thank you all for coming out to today's episode. And as always, have a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.